I want to take a little time and talk a bit about the new nerfs, because that's a pretty major thing with this stream. Yeah, I can actually put this on right now. Okay. It's not in the way of anything, is it? Nah. Okay, so basically last night I was gonna just log on and play a bit of Hearthstone. Then I realized they nerfed a ton of stuff that is actually pretty damaging to my deck now. So I'm gonna just kind of go through it. God, I'm out of decongestants. This is a pain. Okay, so I'm gonna get started with Ancient of Lore. Why is this like? Ancient of Lore, they nerfed that. Now it only draws one card. Used to be choose one, draw 2 cards, or restore 5 health. Okay, the thing is, you know, I can't really say much about how prevalent this card was. I didn't come across it very often, but at the point where you're playing a 7-mana creature, drawing 1 card is not really gonna be... It's not a real power play there. It's not the best thing you could be doing. You know, draw 2 cards, okay, that's some real value for that 7 mana. 2 cards and a 7/7 creature, that's some real value. At this point, you it's basically just generally restore 5 health. That's the option that's really worth it. Force of Nature. I've only ever used this in like arena modes because frankly I don't have it, but they reduce the cost by 1 and it summons 3 2/2 treants. Instead of what it usually was, 3 2/2 treants with charge that die at the end of the turn. Now, they changed just that minor thing of they don't have charge and they don't die at the end of the turn, and they've completely changed the utility of that card. God, every time I start this stream, the audio settings are different. Okay, so yeah, basically they completely changed the utility of this card. Used to be you use this card for burst damage. Now you just use it for board presence. You know, apparently people were throwing this down, then following it up with Savage Roar, which that could be pretty devastating, but you know, I kind of feel like this is gonna play like a completely different card now. Keeper of the Grove. Now we're moving into the ones that pissed me off. Used to be 2/4 for 4 mana. Choose one, deal 2 damage or silence a minion. Now, same abilities, half the health. Okay, this isn't a preferable choice now. You know, 4 mana, 2/2. It's not worth it. That's really not worth it. The only reason I can see myself continuing to use this is because I have a druid deck that is built around either roar effects. So this card still fits thematically. But a 4 mana 2/2 or an ability that's no longer relevant after it's on the field. This is not very good. Now, the biggest one that I take issue with, raising the mana cost of Ironbeak Owl. It was a 2 mana 2/1 silence a minion. Now it's a 3 mana 2/1 silence a minion. It's now really just for when you're desperate for a silence. It's, you know, the biggest thing about it is, hang on. I gotta actually open this up for a sec. Yeah. Right here. This is the biggest problem with that. 4 mana, or 3, same effect. Ironbeak Owl is now a strictly worse choice. So, basically, with the exception of my Beasts deck, which, you know, again, it's a thematic thing, you basically don't have much of a reason to play Ironbeak instead of Spellbreaker. Big Game Hunter. The thing that kind of sucks about this change is that Big Game Hunter was such a good turnaround card. It's not anymore. It, in fact, does not work as a turnaround anymore. Because minion with attack of 7 or more. Okay, 3 mana. You'd have the ability to kill that, and then play something else. At 5 mana, you're basically committing your turn to just playing this. And 4 mana, 2 life, that's not gonna stick around. It's like, that's... You know, this... I really kind of doubt its utility now. Before, it was worth including because if it didn't come up, you still had a 4/2 for a reasonable price. It's no longer a reasonable price now. So it's a lot more of a question whether or not you should actually include it in the deck. And that's a problem that a lot of these nerfs have. Now, it's pretty questionable if you actually want to keep them in the deck now. Now they mention here that they're trying to do something about silence. They're trying to kind of generally nerf silence. Okay, Blizzard. Okay. Look at this card. Look at this card. Ysera. I use this card a lot when I talk about how unbalanced Hearthstone can be. Okay. 4 mana. Not 4 mana. 4 attack, 12 health, 9 mana, end your turn, add a dream card to your hand. First thing to point out, all of those dream cards are broken. They're a little more, like, slightly reasonable because they're gated behind Ysera. You need to actually have Ysera to get any of them, and then you just get them randomly. Okay. But the thing about Ysera is that you have to do something about her immediately. Her, him, I don't know. But you have to do something about Ysera immediately. Paladins can't. Paladins cannot do 12 damage in one card unless they get ridiculously lucky with Holy Wrath, which is 5 mana, draw a card, deal damage equal to its mana cost. You have to pick a target before you draw the card, so you don't even know ahead of time. Priests. Priests have to 2-for-1 themselves to kill Ysera. They have to either pump her up and then Shadow Word Death, or Shrinkmeister, give her -2 attack, and then Shadow Word Pain, or Cabal Shadow Priest to take her. The only way a priest can take Ysera out of the picture with one card is Mind Control, and that takes an entire turn at the end of the game. So, yeah, it's not viable to deal with Ysera with all classes. Hell, a mage has to 2-for-1 themselves against Ysera. The best way, like the only way that you can reliably do something about Ysera is silence. And they're nerfing silence. You say right here. While removal is an important part of Hearthstone, it also makes playing big exciting minions less rewarding. It makes the big minions balanced. Competitive balance. I don't know what it's going to take for you guys to learn what that phrase means. Competitive balance. You shouldn't have a card like this winning a game on its own. This is a card game. There should be a deck that's relevant. There should be a whole deck that's important to each game. Not just one card. I can already tell you, anytime someone plays Ysera against me, I just immediately concede, because it's not practical dealing with her. It's not practical dealing with Ysera, and by the time I do, it's already too late, and they've already got one of the dream cards. Hunter's Mark. This is a card I never get around to using, mainly because I never play Control Hunter. I just go full Face Hunter, so... But I will say, a 0 mana card with an effect like this, I can understand why they felt the need to weaken that a bit. Now, this one right here, this is the big one that everyone's up in arms about. Blade Flurry. Destroy your weapon and deal its damage to all enemies. For 2 mana. Now it's 4 mana. Destroy your weapon and deal its damage to all enemy minions. Now, again, I haven't really run into this card, but apparently it is pretty widespread. And, you know, when something is really widespread, I know there's that urge to nerf it. But I will say, they really might have gone a bit too far. At 2 mana, this was a good early game wave clear. You know, turn 2, Hero Power. Turn 3, Deadly Poison, Blade Flurry. And you've cleared out their early game, so you can just get through. 4 mana, you're probably not going to have a weapon that's relevant to this ability. It's like, that just really kind of seems like a waste now. So, a lot of people are saying, yeah, this is just the end of rogues. I don't know, I feel like rogues do have some, you know, interesting synergies. They have some interesting plays they can do. They don't always do it, but I feel like that's there. Now, last few. Knife Juggler. They dropped its attack power by 1. I don't really mind that, you know. I don't really mind that. Like, frankly, Knife Juggler was never really about its attack power anyway. It was about that after you summon a minion, deal 1 damage. And I kind of feel like this change doesn't really do anything to change anything. Like, I don't really feel like it's particularly more balanced, because, you know, you drop the attack power by 1. Okay, a lot of the 2 drops that get played are 3/2s, so that's still gonna trade, if for some reason you ever attack with it. Leper Gnome. Drop that one's attack power by 1. This one does kinda make a difference. Leper Gnome was a 1 mana, 2/1, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Now it's a 1 mana, 1/1, deal 2 damage. Okay, the problem is, now there's frankly very little reason to take this out early. You know, that was the thing about this card. You wanted to kill it as soon as possible, because it could kind of put you at a bit of a disadvantage in the early game, and that meant for the rest of the game you were playing catch up. 1 damage, that's not gonna set you back that far. You can kinda just leave it and just let the other player run it into your creatures, and, you know, kinda, it doesn't feel quite as useless as some of the other nerfs, as what we're getting to next. But it still just kinda seems like this is kinda against how the card's actually been played. Arcane Golem. Absolutely useless now. This is a strictly bad card now. 3 mana, or 2 originally, with charge. And the battle cry effect, give your opponent a mana crystal. Now, this, ordinarily, it's like, okay, ramp the other player, but I get a nice creature that can attack now, and can actually do a bit of damage. So, actually, a good question of whether or not you wanted to use it. There's actually, you know, some real reasons you might want to actually use it. Right now, it's a 3 mana, 4/4 with the same battlecry ability. Useless. It's just flat out useless now. You're giving your opponent an extra mana crystal for a creature that honestly does not measure up. You know, at the 4 mana point, you can start throwing out 4/5s. Why would you ramp the other player just to play it 1 turn easy, 1 turn earlier? Molten Giant. This is one where it was just this was kind of a useless nerf. And by useless, I mean it didn't do anything. So, they make a good point about why they did things to this. Basically, Molten Giant, 20 for an 8/8, costs 1 less for each damage your hero has taken. Now it's 25 8/8, same ability. And basically what was happening is people were running like heavy healing, and basically because they were losing health and then gaining health again, that loss of health still counted towards reducing this thing's mana cost. So they were not particularly worse for wear, and then throwing out free 8/8s. The problem is, raising the mana cost by 5, they're still gonna do that. That actually barely affects anything. You know, if they could reduce the mana cost by 20, they probably still have what they need to reduce it that extra 5. So, yeah, this is one of those changes that didn't actually affect anything at all. And the last one, Master of Disguise. This is the one that I really understand. 4 mana for a 4/4, give a friendly minion stealth. Now it's 4 mana for a 4/4, give a friendly minion stealth until your next turn. Okay, that I can understand, because stealth can kind of make something completely non-interactive. You know, as an example, Sarah. All you really need Sarah to do is just sit on the field. You're gonna keep getting a handful of broken cards, and give that just stealth permanently, and it's like, okay, they can never kill it. Ysera will never leave. I'm just gonna keep getting this handful of ridiculous stuff. Give a friendly minion stealth till your next turn. Yeah, that, I kind of feel like that's what they were intending with that, and then they realized people were just stealthing something that had a really strong passive ability and then never doing anything with it. Like, you know, you could do it to Kel'Thuzad too, and have your creatures always come back forever. So, yeah, I can kind of understand this actually being a little more in line with what they actually wanted. The one thing people point out, though, nobody ever used this. Like, it was kind of one of those things where it was nerfed more for its potential than for anything else. So, you know, I kind of feel like there's definitely more important things they could have nerfed. And they didn't. They had their priority, and they stuck with it. Now, I wanna talk a little more general about Hearthstone's competitive balance, and more accurately, its lack thereof. So, basically, the biggest problem Hearthstone has right now is that it's hugely pay to win. It's got this huge pay to win problem. And the unfortunate thing is that these changes aren't affecting anything about it. In fact, it's probably making it worse. because you're taking away, you're directly affecting a budget player's only way of dealing with some of these pay-to-win cards. And it's like, you know what? I would be lying if I said you're the only card game that has this problem. It's like, sorry, I'm trying to arrange windows too. But yeah, basically, silence effects are probably, they're probably the best way a budget player has of dealing with some of the more pay-to-win stuff, It's a lot easier to deal with Ysera by just silencing it than some really rare, really expensive card that I'm not even thinking of right now. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of an assault on that. This kind of makes that a lot less viable. I don't know. I am suddenly dropping frames, but... Alright, so... yeah, basically... it's a problem. It's a huge problem. And... frankly... every time they nerf something in Hearthstone, I'm always a little more disappointed when they don't nerf something that's actually broken. Kel'Thuzad, ridiculously powerful. And, to the point where I use him as a crutch. I use Kel'Thuzad when I want to just guarantee that there's going to be something to keep the other player worried. As opposed to, when I actually want to do something good, I just use that as a threat. So, yeah, basically, that's my general problem with Hearthstone nerfing things. The fact that they never actually nerf the things that are broken. They just nerf the things that are useful to players who put less money into the game. And, it's kind of a shame because a lot of people have so much brand loyalty to Blizzard, and I just kind of look at it like, no, I will not defend when they rebalance things in a way that just makes the game more pay to win. So anyway, I think we've had enough ranting for now. How about we get started with the game?